Hello, welcome. This is a very special episode. We are talking all about the Futureverse. It is the monster white paper drop that Fluff, Aaron McDonald, all the crazy mofos who are connected to that ecosystem. They drop something big, and we're going to be digging into it today with the legend himself, Bruno from Remark. And there really is a reason why I brought Bruno along. But actually, it was you who suggested yourself to me, sir. So I'm curious, why did you want to jump into this with me? Why did you want to get down with the Futureverse?
Yeah, the Futureverse struck me on first glance as a project that is really into everything that we're building and seems like they need the tech that we have. So I wanted to look at it and see if there's anything we can do together, but also to take it apart with you and see, how much promise it shows based on that lengthy paper.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was lengthy, but it wasn't crazy lengthy. I mean,
Crazy,
I remember, from 2017, you would read these papers that were like 80,
60
90 pages long. And like the
Yeah.
original Bitcoin white paper is like it's 10 pages or something,
Yeah.
Ah, man, those are the days. So here is the Into the Futureverse white paper. It's essentially a technical paper. And there's a reason it is a technical paper. And if you're familiar with the Fluff World ecosystem, you will probably be more familiar with this. These are Fluffs, Party Bears, Thingies, Seekers, Buzzies. You've got ASM in there with the Genesis, the Brains. You've got ATM Car Club. These are Fluff World games. ASM, AFA All-Stars. We have to add Next Legends into that as well, and many more. Then you've got these meta spaces, the Burrows. And then you have Weta Workshop, the legends from Lord of the Rings, and many, many, many more delivering Dr. Grawboard's ray guns. You have eggs. What are the eggs all about? You have Fluff House. You've got scenes and sounds. Not to mention, Hume, Angel Baby. There's Goblin Town, the original Goblin Town here. There is so much stuff connected to this. And if you've been following this ecosystem, it has become somewhat difficult to understand what the big plan was. What was the big kind of structure that was underpinning all of this? Well, now we have it. So this is my scrappily annotated version of the white paper. And I don't know, I think we should just get into it and go through all the pieces of this and try and figure out what on earth is going on here. And also have a think about what might be missing or what might be hinted at in the paper, because it's not all in here, but it's certainly, you feel like they felt this was the time to publish it and get on with it. So it starts with a kind of definition of what the metaverse is and what it isn't, which is kind of interesting. They say if we look further ahead, it's not hard to imagine a future where the digital economy and our digital experiences form the majority of our interactions and economic activity. So this is positing a world in which the metaverse becomes the defining platform upon which we derive all experiences, pretty much. And it may be difficult for boomers, millennials, even, Gen Z to really wrap their heads around it. But if you have young kids, you will see this playing out right now. This is the way kids consume stuff. You try and explain to them that back in the day there were TVs and they had an antenna you put on the roof, and then like that's how you got stuff, and you couldn't rewind what was on the TV because you couldn't. They were like, nah, bruv, that ain't the way it works. Bruno, do you remember that? Do you remember TV you couldn't rewind?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, my parents still use it, so it's not that far out.
Do you have kids, or do you prefer not to say?
I do. I have a 3-year-old.
Oh, so you haven't reached that point yet. But like, if you had that moment where they're like swiping an iPhone already.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I text with my kid. She's already a whiz. It's pretty scary to see.
Well, you use the word scary, and they use some kind of scary language in this. If this is our future, then right now we're at a precipice. And then they go on to explain how different kind of silos of endeavor on the internet are becoming kind of opened up and connecting with each other. And they make the very good point that the metaverse isn't just a VR game. It's the destination where everything we create, value, and love will reside. The keys to our society and economy exist inside this future. And if we're to embrace it in its most positive form, then we need an open metaverse. And this is where they come to their definition of what an open metaverse is. And we'll hear this a lot in Web3. There's the Zuckerberg version of a metaverse, which we assume will be closed, although that's not a given. And then there's the open metaverse, which will be built upon decentralized protocols in Web3. So they say it's grounded in two principles: an immersive experience. The internet as it is operates within many interconnected but separate silos, but the metaverse removes the boundaries between the major categories we currently engage with, e.g. finance, gaming, social media, and commerce, creating a single experience that encompasses all the current features of the internet. So that's just really a fancy way of saying everything all at once, all the time. Anything there, Bruno? You can't.
Yeah,
You
I
probably
mean,
jam with this.
yeah. This resonates really hard. I think there's this one point three is missing, where it's literally one plus two, something that we focus on really hard, and that's ownership of experience. So you have two of these put together. Right now, assets are one thing, and something that people do expect to own in the metaverse experiences, of course, all your jackets, all your earrings, whatever. But it doesn't change the fact that metaverses today still are just multiplayer games that replace usernames and passwords with NFT login. And it doesn't change the fact that NFTs are static. And when you stop playing, when you invest all that time, when that game closes, when it goes down because of the various vampire attacks and stuff, people will not own their experience. Their experience that they've gathered while playing, the experience they've had, the experience they've collected is not theirs. It's on some sort of server. But if you use the right tech, your NFT can evolve right alongside you, and you can own that experience, even if the environment in which you experience it goes down. And in that case, it no longer matters if a metaverse is ultimately decentralized or downtime resistance, even though we're big fans of that as well. But you can also just spin up, in a few clicks, you spin up a virtual venue for a concert. Maybe you got Deadmau5 to come play at your virtual concert for a week. And you kill it after a week. It's no longer there. But the experience of people being there is there by virtue of these, like we have them as Soulbound 2.0 NFTs, where you have the proof of attendance inside of your avatar. So your avatar grows with you. You own your experience. You are your avatar. And this, I think, is key to the open metaverse. If we're going for the interoperability and the multi-metaverse universe of everything compatible with everything, we need to be able to own the experience, not just the assets. But this resonates really hard.
Yeah, that's such an interesting and new concept. Like we have the after video or the after film of an event just to know that it happened. We always get videographers to document these things, and there's so much documentation of things that happens, but that is always a secondary and an edited experience. Just the fact that you were there, and how that can build your reputation and build a social contract, in a sense, with whatever you interact with. That's pretty profound. So the next big point is ownership, the metaverse being defined by users having control over their assets, data, and basically everything. And this whole idea of interoperability, I think that's a pretty common concept now in Web3. I think we should all be pretty familiar with it. And probably the reason why we're here is because we wanted to move away from a system where the exact opposite was true. But of course, I think the great fear is that the metaverse will simply become another way for large corporations to extract yet more value from us in more pernicious ways. They also say no one can build a metaverse. There is only the metaverse, the collection of user-owned assets that exist. What do you think about that? Do you think that that's correct, that there is a single metaverse and that we simply build instances within that are kind of
only if it respects certain rules. If you have true digital scarcity, i.e., you cannot just log into 5,000 different instances of Decentraland with the same NFT and sell it while you're playing and nothing happens to you. That's not digital scarcity as advertised by NFTs, and that's not the metaverse. That is cheat spawning across a map. You have to keep that in mind. You have to keep this digital scarcity in mind. And the second huge piece of the puzzle is just decentralized cross-collection compatibility. You can't have the metaverse as everything everywhere unless these assets are compatible in a decentralized way. Right now, you have to go through a bunch of single points of failure to get an asset into any game, where you have to talk to the team implementing the game. They have to put that into the client. Then the client has to have a database. That database has to register that if somebody logs in with this NFT, then this camera instance is allowed to use this particular model or whatever else. And this you have to do for every single game. But if the NFT itself contains its own asset, and it can have multiple assets for different contexts, then you end up with a truly the metaverse where everything is compatible with everything. So within those restrictions, yes, I do agree with it, but not as it is right now.
Yeah, and I think that's, as we all discovered, what you just explained there is a fundamental building block. And I do mean building block because it's actually built into the chain itself of what the Futureverse is all about. So we dig around a little deeper. They make the point that the metaverse as we experience it is probably driven largely by pop culture kind of renditions of it. So, Ready Player One, rich, fully fleshed out digital environments in which you can seamlessly move from a DeLorean to Super Smash Brothers or wherever. And that's actually very much the top layer. But to enable all of that to happen, there's a bunch of other stuff, which is, as they say, boring. Although for some people, it probably isn't boring. But for us normal humans, it is boring. And it starts with infrastructure. So they outline kind of the protocols that provide the core building blocks for applications, that you need interoperable content standards. And yeah, here's what they say. We have the application there. This is the very top of the stack in terms of what you actually experience in the metaverse. But in order to make the application there, you need like several levels deep of technology and infrastructure to even make that possible. And that is basically what they've been building in the Futureverse. And that is why this is such a technical paper. What's your response to that?
I would like to see the code here. I'm very excited about this. This is something very much in line with what we've been building for a while now. And I would love to explore this in a more technical way, even more technical way, because I think that is indeed at the core. And you need to start building the open metaverse infrastructure bottom up. Top-down construction does not work. Everybody's focusing on top-down construction. I have this PFP collection. I'm going to make it composable, and then maybe I'm going to make it compatible with other stuff. What you end up with, again, is silos and huge chains of single points of failure where you need a team per project to maintain this and build these cross-collection integrations. It doesn't work. But if you start with a good building block that others can create magic on top of, that is the really exciting part. And if that's part of the protocol, and it looks like it is here, and I'm super excited about it, and I really want to play with it, then yes, this is it. This is where we go.
They made the point that it's about friendly UX as well. We'll dig into more of that. But the analogy I came up with is if you go to the United States, a McDonald's in the United States is part of a franchise. So each McDonald's restaurant franchisee can kind of build the experience of McDonald's that they want to build. So if you travel to McDonald's in Europe, they're all the same. They're all horrible. But you get a burger and the burger experience is the same, but the restaurant experience is the same. If you go to McDonald's in the US, you get some really weird McDonald's. The burger's the same, but the experience around the burger is completely modeled after the owner or franchisee's imagination. And you get them like in castles. You get some really weird things. And it's kind of a bit like that. Like the burger's the same wherever you go, but the wrapper on like the experience around it is different. It's a horrible analogy, I know, but I'm kind of, trying to make it real for people. So they criticize what the so-called metaverse companies are highly concentrated in this application layer. I've seen so many story-driven, massively multiplayer, huge, expansive, world-driven story projects with beautiful NFTs and renders and everything else. I'm just like, guys, it's too big. It's too much. You got to start small and start with something that is way more kind of executable. And I feel like this is fundamentally how you need to start from first principles. So here we go. Enter the Futureverse. What is the Futureverse? Well, there's a set of tools at the infrastructure protocol, content and application there that are built with user experience in mind and fully integrated to ensure interoperability. They keep coming up with this interoperability and user experience. Aaron McDonald did an AMA just recently, and he just kept doubling down on this, that the user experience in Web3 is currently terrible, and that if you want people to come in their droves to make it a mass market proposition, you have to improve the user experience. And he rightly makes the point that current PFP and NFTs and all that stuff, it's great. It feels buzzy. It feels large. But really, in the grand scheme of things, it's a tiny sliver of kind of pastry crust in an enormous pie that is the rest of the world. So it has to be user-friendly, and it has to be simple to execute on. So let's get into it. The Futureverse is comprised of, and the number one here is the big daddy, the Root Network, a decentralized blockchain network optimized for user experience and onboarding. Yes, it's a layer one. They're building a goddamn layer one. This blew my mind when I saw it. What was your reaction to this, Bruno?
Oh, well, I'm pretty deep in the substrate world, so this makes perfect sense to me. This is also why we've developed at Remark the Remark standards as a set of palettes, and palettes are like plugins for substrate chains, where you can optimize down to the machine code level of things for efficiency and performance and everything else you need that is custom that you want your chain to do. This is a huge, like if you take, for example, an EVM chain in general, that's just like a major, massive Excel sheet that stores strings in a very expensive way, and you have some formulas that you can apply here and there. And it's a general purpose computer that is average at everything, but it's not excellent at anything. And this is why most things cost a lot of money, plus just the hubris of people using it for everything. But also, when you have substrate and we have this logic at the core level, this means that for with our palettes, for example, which support this sort of stuff, the Soulbound 2.0s and nested NFTs and everything else, this is all at the chain level. So when you plug that into your substrate chain and you compile that chain, you end up with a chain that is pre-optimized for these NFT-based opcodes, so to speak, and you get a really efficient infrastructure. Plus, in Ethereum, it's very, very difficult to make something like sponsored transactions. Like maybe you want an NFT environment where people don't pay for transactions. Instead, they use their reputational avatars as some sort of credit balance for free actions on the chain. So the more of a good Web3 citizen you've been, the more you can interact with the chain for free. This you cannot do on the smart contract level, but you can very easily do it on the chain level with such a runtime. And the added advantage of using Substrate for this is that they will be able to upgrade the chain in very small increments by using the forkless upgrade technology that is available there, which means that through a simple governance process, you literally upload new code to the chain itself. And when the token holders vote it in, it will just auto-enact. There's no whipping of implementer teams to get together and do a hard fork. There's none of that complexity or bureaucracy or shouting matches on Twitter or Gitter. Everybody just votes how they feel about it, and it gets automatically executed and enacted. You change a car's engine mid-drive, and it just works. And you can do this for small incremental upgrades rather than wait for one monolithic hard fork in all of this, which can go wrong and takes a while to organize and so on. So this is an extremely good choice for this. And I don't really see any other tech stack where they could have built this and where they can actually deliver. So kudos.
Yeah, it was the thing that made me sit up and take notice. I was like, I know a limited amount about the way Dot.Sama functions, but I do know from having talked to people like yourself that really, if you're trying to build up something that can really last and really scale, it is very well equipped to do exactly that. But I was just shocked that this isn't a layer 2, it's a layer 1. And layer 1s they're not straightforward things to put together for the plain and simple reason, like, decentralization is a real thing, and it requires a lot of nodes, it requires a lot of validators, it requires a lot of buy-in, and there are enough places for kind of smart, well-reasoned validators to park their funds. So finding enough validators to really get the network running and functioning properly, that's a big old task. They could have set up their own layer 2, they could have done like Ronin, but they've gone this route, and it sends out a big statement. It really, really does.
Well, in this case, I don't know what their plan is with regards to their chain, whether or not they intend to become a parachain in the Polkadot or Kusama ecosystem. If they do, then the validator problem goes away.
Yes.
Because they inherit the shared security there, and so they don't actually have this issue. They share the security of every other chain in the system. On the other hand, if they do not, then yes, they will have the validator problem, but somehow I don't think that's going to be much of an issue, because we finally have an L1 that has probably more utility than the top 50 coins out there combined.
Ouch, Bruno. So the thing is, I kind of agree with you. I kind of agree with you as well. Like they sneaked all of this tech in under the cover of storytelling and NFTs and good time partying and all this other stuff. And underneath it all, they were building out like proper, genuine infrastructure. It's so intriguing, the whole thing. So Substrate is basically not every Dot.Sama project is built on Substrate. You don't have to, but Substrate's kind of the one that's been set up as the most optimized for that ecosystem. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, every project is right now built on it. It doesn't have to be. Substrate just defines the function signature you have to follow in order to be a Polkadot compatible chain if you want to connect. But you can also make it stand alone. It just abstracts away a lot of the nonsense. Like you don't have to spend a year doing R&D on block production, consensus, database storage, networking, all of that sort of stuff. All of that's already in there. If you just download the code, compile it in 10 minutes and run it, you already have a template chain, which is, fun fact, something that like half the live chains in that ecosystem are still template chains, pretending to be more. But if you do this, you can just upgrade. You can the key here is that you can focus on the logic of your chain right away without wasting time on the boilerplate. That's the advantage of Substrate. But you can technically make anything into a parachain on the Polkadot ecosystem if you just follow the state transition signature that you need to do, like current state, state transition function, new state. If you communicate that over to the relay chain, which maintains all of these validators, then you can make even a video game into a parachain, because you do have old save state, state transition function, new save state. So that can be a chain as well. It's just that Substrate really abstracts a whole lot of problems away from you. And this is what it's majorly used for. So in this case, it makes sense because it also comes with a vibrant ecosystem of developers and plugins that you can already use.
Yeah, that was one of the things that Aaron said. He said in terms of having a vibrant developer community and all sorts of different things which could be easily ported over, it made a huge amount of sense. It's not mentioned in the white paper whether they will be connected as a parachain, but the fact is they could be if they wanted to be, and that's quite a big deal. And also that opens up so much more interoperability. And if that's what you want, and you believe in Dot.Sama as an ecosystem that can really flourish, then yeah, absolutely. So the next piece of this is a decentralized identity protocol. I think this is, everybody knows that this is an essential component of any Web3 infrastructure. You got to have a way to prove who you are without necessarily revealing who you are, and understanding what that will be, how it's permissioned, what kind of data it can access, how it can access that data. There's a lot of stuff to figure out there. They do mention how they will structure that later on. They've got a decentralized delegation protocol, which again is going to allow any DApp to have granular access to whatever you decide to give it. So it's not just, oh, look, here's my asset. No, you can have maybe one of the pieces of metadata within that asset, or one of the layers within it. That's probably something that you've been thinking about as well, I would imagine, Bruno, like how to create layered access to assets.
Yes. So on the DID front, so we are building this CipherMod SDK, which has very many similarities with this Futureverse project as well. Like our thing is an SDK that does all of this more or less in some different flavors, but plugs into other engines to ultimately produce a result, and you use it as a configurator of sorts, where you launch these advanced NFTs and a backend-less infrastructure and so on. But as part of that SDK, you have this optional DID layer. And we say optional because in reality, and here's another hot take, most games won't care about this and will actively avoid DID because that would prevent them from saying they have 100,000 active users. They like their bots. And so until they have the critical mass to actually start removing bots and say we actually have 100,000 users, most games are just not going to opt for this, actually. But yes, it is absolutely necessary as a layer. However, I think it should be an open plugin ecosystem for various DID providers. So what we did was we have this hooks process where any DID provider like Kilt, Lit-N3, or whatever else can just plug into the creation step of this project that you're building, and you can optionally plug in one of those partners that have developed the plugin. Since it's all open source, you just plug it in, and then you have DID. It's like middleware for your user logins, and this does help. But you need to make it optional, and you also need to. So there's a whole can of worms about personal information there, and so on. So I think a project like this, tackling it on directly, is maybe not the way. It is, in my opinion, better to partner up with somebody who's already tripped on some mines and maybe gone through, the problems.
Well, from reading further down the list, it looks clear that this was not just them coming up with it themselves. They've partnered up with various different specialists in these things to provide these services that people who have tripped to their own feet. And that brings us number 4, the decentralized communications, notifications, and storage protocol. Silo and Seekers will be a key component of that, allowing messaging. Number 5, decentralized artificial intelligence protocol. That's ASM. Then we have payment networks and wallets designed to help onboard and connect physical goods, the financial rails of the metaverse. No idea who that's going to be, what it is, but you can kind of see why it's necessary. And then content assets, a rich set of user-owned digital assets designed with storytelling at their heart. Normally, when I see design with storytelling at their heart, I kind of scoff and go, yeah, all right, yeah, good one. But actually, in this case, they built the story first, and then they slipped all this stuff underneath it. So they kind of have. So let's go on. We'll find stuff that we don't like, I'm sure. But hey, let's keep going. So we get into more of the root network. We've actually kind of covered this stuff, but here's an interesting bit. There's native EVM support for smart contracts, which means that any code previously written for Ethereum can now run natively on the root network. And there's compatibility with existing collections and assets in the NFT ecosystem. So I'm curious how this is going to work. Is it because like you've got Aurora, which is on Near, and that's a EVM network. Is it going to be that, or is it going to be just running on the root network? How do we think that's going to work?
So the EVM, there's this palette, which is the plugin for Substrate chain called Frontier, and that comes with the EVM engine built in, which means that if you plug that into your chain, you automatically just get EVM support. So all you have to do is just include that configuration file, compile your chain, and you have EVM support along with everything else. And that's all there is to it. So, I mean, okay, there's some extra complexities about merging the accounts so that you can use a Substrate account and an EVM account at the same time and read the same balance. And this is something that Moonbeam Network has been experimenting a lot with, because they are actually the EVM chain, the canonical EVM chain on Polkadot and Kusama. They basically perfected this whole EVM plugin, but essentially now it is ready for anybody to use. And in fact, most chains that pop up now in the .sama ecosystem also include the EVM palette, which defeats the purpose in some way, but most of them have it purely because of this portability. It literally is just copy over code from Solidity, from Ethereum or whatever else, and it just works. And this is also a huge advantage of this ecosystem, where not only can you just pull the existing code in there from anywhere else, and also if something happens, like a multi-sig wallet implodes and locks a lot of funds away, you're only one network governance call away from unlocking that without a hard fork if you need to. But also, if you connect your Substrate chain with all the other chains in the ecosystem through by it being a parachain, you get automatic guaranteed message execution across all of them without a separately incentivized bridging infrastructure. And that is super cool, because now you have true connectivity. Because now you can build, like, for example, in our case, we have many chains implementing a remark now and using this to communicate across each other. And so if you have an avatar that has reputational Soulbound 2.0 tokens inside of itself as reputation markers for participating in Web3 or whatever, not only is it a cool indicator for visual, for you being an active user, but also you can trustlessly clone it, teleport it over into a chain that can now give you an under-collateralized loan because your reputation is your collateral. Or you can have good performance in a prediction market chain and take that over. And so with this, Futureverse NFTs, you can take your entire stack of experience and assets from the Futureverse and any metaverse that launches using it into any other connected chain. So I think there's a clear advantage in them connecting as a parachain.
Yeah. I mean, that's when you open it up like that, it's so wild where this is all going. in reality, we talk about being able to port NFTs from, let's say, Ethereum, where the main reason for NFTs to be on Ethereum is OpenSea, into Futureverse or the Dot Summer ecosystem. Is it straightforward to do that? Do they just kind of map over what is it exactly that happens? Because I've never been entirely clear about that. Do you get a one-to-one clone of the asset duplicated on the other side? How does it work?
There's different approaches. The easiest one is just IOUs. So you lock it on the Ethereum side, and some sort of bridge that does need a separate incentivization structure mints an IOU for you on the destination, just like wrapped tokens, basically. Then there are two projects that I know of that are doing literally migrations, and they do this by allowing the minter, the owner of the collection, to define the destination contract, destination address on each chain. So they pre-map them. So they say like this collection maps to this one on the other end. And they've basically then whitelisted a bridge, so to speak. And this bridge makes sure that everything gets copied over alongside with the metadata, but the metadata is additionally appended with information about history on the origin chain. So the destination NFT contains the history of its past on the origin chain. And if you make that bridge a few more times, if you add it every time you bridge it through this infrastructure, you always get this appended history so that you know the full track of where this NFT has been. Of course, this only works for NFTs that are reasonably simple and static. If you have some custom functionality in there, if you have equipables like we do and stuff like that, then it becomes exponentially more complex because you have to map every single item with the whitelisted bridge. But that's basically how it works. One maps contracts directly, and the other just mints IOUs.
Well, it's clear then that if you want people to preferentially exist on a chain, you need to make that chain really fun to be on. So one of the things that brings us down to these custom runtimes designed to make it very easy to build stuff without being a smart contract developer. This is a theme that recurs. We also have like network-wide royalty enforcement, native multi-wallet split and tiered royalties for creators, native NFT to NFT swaps, native static and cold minting options, and again, build NFT dApps without needing to develop or deploy smart contracts. I feel like there's a lot of stuff that you and I have talked about regarding some of these things, but
this is a little bit maybe misleading to call it easy, because this is Rust. Rust is anything but easy. If you want to build something, you always go to Solidity because you can have an MVP ready in an afternoon, especially with the automatic UI builders. But Rust is much harder, and also if a chain is already running, to get that plugin into the chain, you have to go through a governance process, which usually has a time delay and a vote and everything else. So it's actually not that simple to get new stuff in. But everything they mention here is indeed very relatively easy to develop in terms of custom functionality. Yeah. Well, apart from maybe royalties, because royalties are just not enforceable on chain and don't really make sense. But the other stuff is very much something that you can develop as individual features that you can just plug into at will, and anybody else can develop also these custom fancy features and just request a runtime upgrade. And anybody can do this, and anybody else can vote for this. And if it goes in, it goes in.
Sounds good. Well, I'm skeptical about that, how easy it will be, but let's see. So they talk about the multi-token economy. There's going to be a mycelium token, which is the governance token, proof of stake, consensus token. And then they say they've partnered with an existing highly liquid token, but they do not say who it is. So this is, I'm trying to think of a good comparison here. So like VeChain, for instance, you have the VET token, and then you have VTHO, I think is the gas token. So they have a multi-token system. Just putting a terrible example off the top of my head, but it's a similar kind of thing. The mycelium token was going to be airdropped to holders of Fluffworld NFTs, but I was digging around to try and figure out what this existing highly liquid token might be. And someone mentioned it might be the Plug token, and the Plug is the token of Plugnet. I don't know a huge amount about Plugnet. I know it's a DeFi chain, but that's pretty much as far as it goes in terms of my knowledge of this thing. So do you have any further insights into what this thing might
Not
be?
at all. Not at all.
No.
Why did your source think it was this?
There's some digging around.
Fair enough.
Yeah, it was a by the by comment on a Spaces, I think, that might have pointed in that direction. They have a connection to the to Futureverse in the same way that SensNet does as well. The SensNet is noted in the paper for having kind of been the basis for quite a lot of the functionality on Futureverse. So that was kind of interesting. And Plug is as well, I believe. I'm not sure. So anyway, this is their solution for that. I'm not going to go into any of these. You're going to have fungible assets like regular tokens in there. You can have a DEX. The decentralized state oracle, I mean, you know, oracles are always tricky, but I guess if they can, you know, establish a decent one, they can call, you know, states from all over the place and plug in real world data and all those usual things that we see in DeFi. Liquidity and asset bridges. Yeah, here we go. The root network can also act as a hub for other substrate-based networks. We've already talked about that.
Okay. So this actually clears it up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because this indicates to me that they're planning a relay chain, which means that they're going to have their own shared economy, because level 2 relays are not yet a thing in Polkadot. So you can't have a chain that also hosts other chains, which means that they are planning to be the layer 0 to other layer 1s in a way. And so this clears it up if that's what it means.
It doesn't clear. It doesn't. Yeah. Doesn't clear it up for me.
Yeah. When they say it acts as a hub for other substrate-based network, that's basically them saying other substrate chains can connect to this.
Gotcha. Okay. So I now have information coming to me from Twitter from Phil. So Plugnet is Jeff McDonald. So there's a lot of McDonald's, and it was apt that I was talking about McDonald's earlier because the McDonald brothers are all over this thing. Brilliant people. So David runs State Machine, Altered State Machine, and then Plugnet is Jeff. So that's where the connection comes in. Those Kiwis, they run hard. I'm telling you. So Mycelium is a governance token. I think we're all kind of familiar with that. It's going to be used as the primary in-game currency for the Fluff World ecosystem. So instant utility for the token in whatever way they choose to use it. Stake to play. What I think is interesting here is like a lot of blockchain games require you to kind of buy an NFT, and then there's a bunch of other stuff you have to do to grind your way into the game. If you're staking, you're instantly earning tokens, and with those tokens, you know, once they've refilled enough, you'll be able to go back and play. So there's this idea that once you've bought your stake into a game, as long as you keep that stake there or into a game world, you'll always be able to play. And I think that's kind of a nice way of using staking inflation to keep the game system and the game economy liquid and moving and allow people to play. Because I think, you know, if you've ever played blockchain games on Ethereum, they suck because they're so expensive. It's just like you just don't want to play them because every time you do anything, it's just, oh, there's $100 gone. So that's kind of fun. Nothing really that remarkable about it. Yeah, here we go. The nature of the multi-token economy means that Mycelium holder community can get access to these tokens via staking the network. So once you stake, you'll earn tokens and you'll be able to keep playing and operating within the system.
Yeah, this is the kind of charge mechanic that a lot of you know, games try to do. This is something we did as well with Skybreach. Stake your tokens, generate mana, use mana as currency for in-game actions, and it just contributes to locking up an already deflationary token and gives it a lot of utility from the get-go. So this is a smart choice. Yeah,
there are 12 billion tokens. Seems like a lot, but actually, when you think about their ambition, which is, you know, we need to plug in a great deal more of the world's population than we currently have in the space, then it kind of makes sense. We'll have to be, I mean, like figuring out tokenomics is probably one of the hardest and most futile things you can try and do. Whatever you do, you will be wrong. it doesn't matter how you do it, and then you'd be kind of figuring out how to fix it and course correct. That's just the way it goes. Good luck to them. So the SensNet Burn to Mine, many of the root networks, runtimes, and technology, there we go, have come from our collaboration with the SensNet team. And you can transfer your SensNet tokens to Mycelium in a ratio of 1-to-1. So they're welcoming anyone from that ecosystem over. There you go. So the next bit that was interesting is the token service, a set of APIs or graph endpoints which allow developers to interact with the root network without having to understand Web3 protocols. What do you make of that one?
Sounds centralized. API for me screams middleware and indexing services and so on. And I'm allergic to the types of the graph and similar. So not sure what they mean by this.
Well, I went through the AMA and there's a clue in there, which is basically you can have your decentralized and your full fat decentralized if you want it. But for a lot of developers and a lot of people wishing to deploy quickly, or at least deploy in a kind of more Web 2 way, they're going to want a helping hand. And across all of these different things like wallets and DIDs and all these kind of things, they're going to offer up the opportunity to have a semi-custodial experience with the opportunity to level up and go full decentralized at a later date. But the way they're planning on doing that is the same way they've done everything else, which is gamify it. So instead of having like, oh, you're running a node, they went, no, you've got this cute Seeker NFT and that's going to be a node. And here's a way we can gamify all that. They'll do the same thing with the transition to full decentralized. So I think you're absolutely right. But I think it's a stepping stone or a bridge to a decentralized future for those who might be more reticent about it. Read on that as you will. And there's a nice little graph here. I honestly didn't understand it, but I have a very small brain. So there's lots of different things you can do with that. MetaMask support, infrastructure APIs. Yeah, okay. We've talked about the DID and asset passport, specifically about the way we need a uniform way to identify things in the system. That doesn't necessarily need to mean people. It can be NFTs. It can be, gosh, anything really. Something that's better than more portable than a public key. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, this makes sense. Anything like NFTs are not like if you learn the NFT definition that we try to push on people, and that they are just rows of information that you can cryptographically prove you own. Anything can be a really portable and easily provable data record that has a ton of different utilities. There's a chain that uses soulbound 2.0 NFTs to literally tokenize ideas and intellectual property rights and attach licenses to them. So you can apply this to anything from a design, a blueprint for a house in the metaverse to literally your avatar or the a part of the visual of the avatar and so on. So yeah, for sure.
I'm curious what the UX is going to be like around these, like how it's going to work exactly, how we're going to interact with these things and how we're going to implement them. I still haven't really seen a good version of that yet, but I'm sure somebody very smart is working on it.
Yeah, I think like the UX part is going to have many more millions of dollars thrown at it, and it should. So because that is by far the biggest, like game development teams in general, they're when in the game development team, typically teams don't even tell you they're working on a game until they're 3 years in with 20 discarded prototypes that weren't fun enough to play. And Web3, everything works the other way around, where you raise $50 million on a Unreal Engine 5 demo, and then hit a wall when trying to build something AAA. So UX
he brings the hammer.
UX is going to have a lot of work applied to it. I think the answer is in the delegation that they mentioned. That's an awesome one. One we've thought about as well, but also what we've thought about is context-specific session keys, where from one main account, you generate one private key that basically sits in your local storage and is limited to only being able to sign movement transactions. And so when you move around, you don't actually have to interact with the wallet or password or anything at all. It just auto-signs because losing it is no harm at all. So tiered access to different functionality inside of a metaverse that is abstracted into a common and reusable framework in a way.
Yeah, and you can imagine across different instances in metaverses that different rules will need to apply, and you have to permission those, and making that work seamlessly is going to be a difficult thing. Here you go, delegated access. We just talked about that. Self-sovereign data store, yes, I think that's pretty familiar, and it should be absolutely in there. The decentralized delegation protocol. I love this bit. This idea of donuts.
Yeah,
Or a patent
donuts are
pending
cool.
proof of delegation protocol. Very cool. So using donuts makes wallet transactions safer by allowing fine-grained access to assets. So this is the Web3 evolution of a cookie. It's very cool. I'm very curious to see how those will go down. But like, if you eat too many donuts, you get fat. So now we get to talk about Silo and the decentralized communication, notifications, and storage protocol. This is pretty cool. I do like Silo. Have you come across much of the seekers?
I do have a few, but I did not dive in as much as I maybe should have. This is an interesting concept, though, and something that I absolutely adore, the gamification of nodes. What a fantastic idea. Just abstracting that away from, being too tech elite and making it into a fun experience to run a node. That is absolutely fantastic. Seems a little bit like Fala Network. This is our build partner in the CypherMod project. They're also running a decentralized processing cloud chain in a way. So sounds familiar and sounds like a good target for our SDK, but a very, very, very unique idea to gamify it.
Yeah, I've run a node once or twice in the past, and it sucks so bad. If you're like really don't understand pseudo YAM and logging in to AWS and doing all these kind of things, like,
oh my God, you just said the dirtiest word in blockchain.
I did.
AWS.
I did, but like, it's the dirty secret that so many Ethereum nodes are hosted on AWS. Hey, you got to say it. So yeah, this is a fun way, and I really hope that it opens up running a node to people who might not otherwise. But let's see. The NFTs themselves, they're super cool. They've made a buttload of them. Like, just the sheer the amount of work that went into creating that many of them in 3D with all their own attributes. It's impressive. So Silo is this messaging service, and it's going to provide real-time events, asynchronous messaging, notifications, state management, real-time calling, real-time data exchange. I feel like in like a year's time, the list of the things that it can do is going to be like 10 times as long. I was thinking about, from a broadcasting and video production point of view, like, could I basically, like the way you had iPods and then you had podcasts. So you had this device, and then they figured out that there was a way of getting entertainment to you that was delivered directly to the pod. And now we think of podcasts as just like kind of radio stations, but like at the time it was wild. Now I'm thinking, like, we have a piece of kind of software or infrastructure that's always with us in Web3, and that's a wallet. So what if, like, podcasts to pods, what if you had wallet casts for wallets? So the wallet itself was a media player, and we could stream directly to a wallet. Like, what would that look like, and how would it work? And then, like, I look at this, I'm thinking, well, maybe we could have seekers that have AI built into them, and they can go around, and if you go kind of hang close to it, you have location-specific material that comes out. But like, just the idea of being able to beam entertainment directly to a wallet and not use YouTube, not use Twitch, but like have that infrastructure, that's a really wild idea. And I think that's something that I think it's on us to ask those questions publicly and see if we can figure out how to route material through these networks in a completely different way. But we're going to have robust messaging in order to make that happen.
No doubt. This actually makes a lot of sense. I would like to dive into the technicals of the Silo nodes, because they're obviously not chain nodes. There's something else that you run, and it has to be, click and run thing. You can't expect people to configure things in Linux and stuff. So it has to be something easy that people will probably run on their computer. And if they do, then that kind of reminds me of, just a browser, because in the browser you have WebRTC, you have 3D rendering with Canvas and 3JS and whatever else you want. Everything is already in there. You have this real-time communication. Browsers can talk to each other. They can, in effect, be nodes or even light clients for blockchain. So what if they make an application like that can also consume this content the way you said and hosts your wallet?
Yeah, I think the wallet in general is due for a major facelift. Just the general concept of what a wallet can do and how it can enable you. For me, it feels like wallets are going to be like the iPhone was. Once you start using, have you looked at MetaMask Flask or anything like that? You have.
Yeah.
I know you have. Yeah. So like being able to build apps on top of MetaMask, that's just the start of it. But like there's so much more that can be done with that as the starting point. We're so early in that. So yeah, what else do we see here? They can use the user's wallet or items held in the wallet as the basis of their online identity. This is something we've talked about already. It's the first network to gamify node infrastructure. We've talked about that already. And yeah, they use their own law in order for your Silo node to participate in the incentivized network. It needs to be paired with a seeker, and it literally needs to become a metaverse character. This is wild. I mean, when you think about it, though, if you think about the Star Wars universe, you have all these droids walking around that do specific tasks, and some of them speak, some of them don't. Some of them are combat droids, some of them are maintenance droids. This is basically where we are now. This is it. It's happening.
Next stage, nodes, like physical nodes, are going to have legs and walk around with you.
Yes, and then
awesome.
Yes,
I can imagine the floating Fallout droid, that the house robot.
Yes,
that's the thing.
Yeah,
that's the Seekers, actually.
Yeah, there's I think the world's first fully functioning sex robots are about to be launched. I'm sure they're going to cost a fortune, but like the future's bright.
There you go. Maybe they can host a node.
Yes. Ah, boy, what a bright future we're painting here. It's beautiful. Then there's the decentralized artificial intelligence protocol. I've been fascinated with this since I heard about Altered State Machine. The ability to train up an AI brain for specific tasks and then plug it into an NFT so you can create this NPC that does specific things for you. I mean, come on. Like it's like what? It's so cool. I'm really excited to see how this is going to play out. I mean, I have no idea. There's a sort of dystopian vision of AI and there's a utopian vision of AI.
Little skeptical there. I mean, ASM is interesting. We have something similar with non-transferable pathfinding algorithm, NFTs and avatars and Skybreach, as well as other, Soulbound 2.0 NFTs inside of transferables, like a personality NFT or a pathfinding algo or skill as an NFT and so on. But like I work with devbot.com, which is like a company that uses AI to classify and process the entire internet. So I know what AI really is. In order to get, at least at this stage, in order to get any kind of AI going in a deterministic way in the metaverse, you also need to have deterministic processing of AI instructions, which means the whole system can only be as complex as the lowest common denominator of either the client processing this per user or the node running this processing, depending on how ASM works. I'm not sure here. So if you have some sort of instruction for a metaverse character that everybody sees, then the output of that metaverse character NPC has to be deterministic based on that AI, which means that whatever's processing that output based on those instructions has to be what everybody else has and the weakest one of that entire set. So you are here exposed to a much weaker version of AI than you're usually exposed to, which doesn't have to be a bad thing, but just so people are aware of the limitations, you can't really expect to put a thinking computer together on the blockchain. That's never going to work.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see how it works out. I think the plan is to have it in various games. So like there's the ATEM racing game, there's the Next Legends boxing game, and then there's AFA, which is a football game with all these different environments in there as well. But I mean, again, we're at the early stages of all of this stuff. Who knows where this will go? They do paint a big vision here. Beyond this, ASM seeks to bring life to what can be very dull and empty metaverse environments. I absolutely 100% agree here. It can be like, it's just crickets. Yep. Some of these incredible spaces, you just walk around like, this is supposed to be social. It's supposed to be a mass social experience. You watch that Fortnite Travis Scott concert and everyone's like just bouncing off everywhere. That's what I want. I want to be bumping. I want to be Mongkok at like 10 p.m. trying to get some nice stinky tofu. That's what I want. Am I painting a picture for you?
Yes, indeed. I think they're also on the right track here with the evolution of this experience, where you start small with smaller experiences that are more concentrated. And as the world grows, as the attention grows, so does the world. There's this one project in Dotsama that pulled this off really well. They're called Moon Sama, and it's a Minecraft mod. And it's very popular for the specific reason that it is only available for 4 hours on a Sunday. And so now you have this entire swarm of people just waiting for that 4-hour window. And it is so exciting for them that they spend the next week talking about it. And so when it's time to play again, it's again exciting. So small piecemeal servings of this game that are concentrated, so you end up with a concentrated set of players that interact and have a shared experience that they can also own, is indeed an extremely good recipe here.
Yeah, I'm all about that. I'm controlled supply of stuff, you know, like if something's always on, you stop valuing it. That is really kind of my experience of things. But hey, you know, that's where we're heading to. Let's skip through. ASM is its own whole thing, but that's where the AI comes in. So they talk about the content, and this is their sort of content philosophy here. Most metaverse companies start and end at content, but this is only the tip of the spear. So we're very familiar with like these vast worlds that purport to be the metaverse, or a vast world in which you can fight demons or whatever it is you want to do. Great content is the key to onboarding and sustain diverse, engaged communities. Diverse and engaged, kind of a big part of the Fluff World mindset. So they do, the first kind of strand here is best in class first party content ecosystem. So this is everything we've seen in the Fluff World ecosystem with fluffs and party bears and thingies. And well, while I'm talking about thingies, if you don't know them, these weird kind of spider creatures with these backpacks on, all of them have a different fluff attached to them. There is an idea that these will be the creatures that go out and harvest mycelium for you. And I have also heard that there will be artists and they will be able to create AI generative art by themselves just as a byproduct of all of this. I mean, the stuff that's going on here is just bonkers. So we see here the path that this is what they say is the correct way to go about scaling content in Web3 is to follow the path below. Stories and lore is bigger than characters, bigger than content, bigger than small spaces, bigger than activities, large spaces, and then game. So this is exactly what we were talking about. I, being the dyed-in-the-wool filmmaker that I am, want to say that actually I think characters should go first. You start with character, then stories and lore. But it depends how you want to build out your system. But like I see so many massive projects right now where there's just so much work to be done to understand just the backstory, just to get started. And like I think if you start with a character, just a simple, like when you're making a short film, the best formula for that is a character, a world, and a problem. And if you can start from there, that really is all you need. So even before you start building out the lore, just start with that, and then you'll get somewhere. It's exhausting otherwise. Then we have partnerships with leading IP rights holders. Next Legends was kind of one of the first of these with Muhammad Ali, but I get the feeling that there's something absolutely enormous waiting around the corner. And the reason I know this is because I was on a podcast with Fluffs just recently, just last week, and I accidentally, because it was 2 a.m. in the morning, I accidentally, in the very first thing that I said the word butt plug. And for the rest of the hour, we were riffing around butt plugs. And it is funny that plug might well be the token in this, the liquid token. I mean, like we were just riffing on this, and then they had to take the podcast down because somebody, a future partner, was a little bit upset about the use of all this. It just got a little bit too kind of boys' room adult humor. I'm like, it's Web3, get on board. But yes, so I have a suspicion that there's something big around the corner, a big IP that's about to join in.
How do you accidentally say butt plug?
I don't know. It was alliteration. So I was talking about the ecosystem. I said they've got bears, they've got bees, they've got butt plugs. It just came out. Because I was trying to be funny. Because I was there for light relief. I was just there to be the comic. Well, anyway, it's well, the fact that it got taken down just tells me that there might be something big. I'm not gonna speculate on what it is, because
that is a good hunch. Good hunch.
Yeah, it is a good hunch. Like when people start getting kind of like, oh, you can't say that. Oh, you can't say that. Then you know, like we've hit mainstream, or at least the foothills of mainstream. And then there's going to be an ecosystem development fund. Great. That means that other people can come build there. I mean, if you've ever tried to get a layer one off the ground, and I used to work for Harmony, so I know how this goes. Like getting anybody to come and build, it's literally there's only one way to do it. You just have to reach in your pocket and just put a massive wad of cash on the table. Otherwise, they won't do it. They're not just come and go, "Oh, this is nice." But they might come there if there's good IP already there and there's some halo effects on all of that. So, Bruno, do you have questions that were not answered by this white paper? Because I'm sure you do.
I mean, I would just like to know more about their technical plans for cross integration. I would like to know more about the standards that they're building and how it all works, because I think we have that technology already and we would love to work together because it's literally designed to plug into a substrate chain. I would like to learn about their parachain strategy, if any, or relay chain strategy, if any, and discuss those things. I think there's so much potential here. About there's a massive amount of overlap, and that I yet don't see as competition, but a potential wonderful collaboration in many ways. That I wouldn't even know where to begin asking. There's so many different things here. Like how do the silo nodes work? How do you literally turn NFT characters into nodes? What if there are more people who want to run nodes than characters? What if you lose a character on a burned wallet or something? What happens then? So it's all interesting questions from every aspect of this paper, but very, very excited about this. Super exciting stuff.
Well, I'm glad you are excited, because I read it and it gave me a sense of the scope of what it is they've been building, and also just the kind of the bravery with which they've done it, because it's not, there's so many other pieces to this. There's Universe.xyz, there's polymorphs, but there's also just this crazy technical infrastructure being built underneath it. And they've reached out to projects in New Zealand to do it. You don't think of New Zealand as a hub of kind of Web3 creativity and technical know-how, but they're proving that it absolutely is. Funny enough, this popped up this week, which was Neil Stevenson, who wrote Snow Crash, who came up with the name Metaverse, is launching a layer one blockchain for the open metaverse. It literally was June the 8th. So like yesterday, this popped up. And I was instantly thinking, like, how? Like, what is this? How?
This can't be a coincidence. There's a conspiracy of some sort.
It was nuts. It's called Lamina One. Here it is.
Yep.
There's very little detail about it. There's some fairly big heavy hitters. They're going to be at Consensus in Austin, so presumably they're going to reveal more about it. Some of the investors are kind of interesting as well, but like I'm just so like I said, launching a layer one's tough. It's really tough. But it's I know nothing more about it than the fact that they've announced it. So I'm very curious how that's going to work. One of the things that Aaron mentioned was this Landworks, which is a metaverse land renting marketplace. And you can clearly see that like the ability to rent any NFT asset safely and efficiently and trustlessly is going to be a big deal in the metaverse. Everyone's going to want an asset so they can go play a game, and people who have them are going to want to be able to kind of just rent them out.
Claim airdrops.
Claim airdrops, exactly. I've got some items in BendDAO at the moment, and BendDAO has a flash claim function. So if if there's a Bored Ape airdrop, I can flash claim that and then get it back into the loan position, which is really interesting. What else was I looking at? This is Helix. This is a parallel metaverse, I think they call it, a parallel world. It's basically a complete digital copy of New York. I mean, what the hell? So you have this, called Parallel City, and it's a complete digital copy of New York that you can go and interact in and play in. I thought this is a really interesting concept of like, you can't get to New York. Like the guy I work with is Azerbaijani, and the US won't let him in. They won't give him a visa. So now he can go visit this instead. It's like, we're going to NFT NYC. Here's the version of NFT NYC you can go to. But you can imagine that's like a digital twin or some form of digital playable twin for things in the future. I don't know. It's kind of wild.
Does it
and then
work,
yeah, it's I don't know what it is. I mean, it's
Unreal Engine 5 demo.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is. If you don't know what Bruno's talking about, literally when you open up Unreal, there's literally 4 options of different games that you can open up and just get going straight away. So you can have bye-bye. It's my cleaner's leaving. You can have like a driving game, you can have a first-person shooter game, and you can probably like get one off the shelf and get it up and running pretty quickly. Yeah. The one thing that I didn't see mentioned at all is the thing that's powering kind of the big proposition of the other side, which is Improbable, and Improbable's sort of ability to allow thousands of people to be in the same space at the same time, the networking capability. I didn't see any of that in Futureverse, and it feels like that's going to be something they'll need to solve. I don't know if you had any thoughts about that.
No, that's tough. That's a tough one. I don't know how they can. I mean, there are ways to connect thousands of people together. There's no. I mean, look at what Web World is doing right now. They like the number of people in there is already approaching hundreds, and it works extremely smoothly. So if you offload the graphical processing to the client, it works in essentially the same way. It's just 3D coordinates instead of 2D. But yeah, this is going to be a client-side problem for sure, and a throughput problem rather than a blockchain level problem.
Yeah, there's one other thing that I noticed in Philip Huang's very helpful guide to the ecosystem here. He's basically built a map that helps you kind of get into this, and that's the eggs, which is up here if I zoom in. So there are these eggs, and nobody really understood what they were for, but they're for breeding existing fluffs and onboarding and rendering existing NFTs to be Futureverse compatible. So you have a Bored Ape, it can play in the Futureverse. It doesn't have to be stuck in the other side on the VC version of the metaverse. It can be there as well. So he's talking about meta ready, making your avatar metaverse ready as a service. I mean, I guess that, I don't know if you looked into the other side much, but they're fabled SDK that will allow any NFT collection to come and play on the other side because they needed to build it themselves. It feels like it's a similar kind of thing here, and it will be essential for doing that. So I think up here they've got a list of projects that are kind of connected to or thinking about being connected to. So we have Meebits, Polymorphs, Crypto Walkers, Cool Cats. So Cool Cats are definitely not 3D, and everything in Fluff World is 3D. So, the metaverse, as far as I understand it, most versions of the metaverse are like real-time 3D. So you need to have a 3D version of it. I don't know. How do you feel about voxels, voxelated versions of assets? I personally hate them.
I don't care much for any style that they opt for. I'm not a fan of the low poly 3D stuff like in Decentraland. That to me is disgusting. The Play-Doh-y version of avatars. I don't like that. But this part right here, the siloed SDKification of different NFTs to make them fit into other metaverses is the problem that I mentioned in the beginning. That is the most important problem that we have solved with multi-resource NFTs. I urge every project that is now trying to do this to stop in their tracks and look into multi-resource NFTs that we have. You can have one skin file for one universe and one skin file for another universe in the same NFT, and you can add skin files later on. And the NFT has the asset that it needs to be rendered in that context. You do not need to build a separate SDK that people will have to really have trouble with getting a team to, to accept that asset and do everything with it. An NFT can contain all of its own assets for different contexts in one NFT as just multiple faces of the same thing as side A and side B on a vinyl. And this is how it should work. You should have decentralized ability to be multi-context. Everything else is just a hack, and I urge everybody not to do this hack, because then it doesn't matter if you're voxel, if you're 3D, if you're 2D, if you're top-down 2D pixel-based, if you're a little blob of Play-Doh, all of it goes, all of it works. You can just keep adding utility to the same NFT rather than generate a new NFT every time you need to port it into a new metaverse. And then that same NFT can also evolve with you, rather than you trying to evolve a bunch of different clones and different styles that are vaguely contextually connected. This is the missing part, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you boil it down, the metadata that's in that's built into an NFT can be represented and interpreted in so many different ways. And I think there's another point, which is like there are certain assets that just don't belong in certain game spaces because they don't. Like Aaron made the point, like a fluff does not have any space, doesn't deserve to be in a World War II game, for instance. It just shouldn't be there. That's ridiculous. So there are certain ways in which you can gate NFTs so they just don't belong in a game, or you can say, well, actually, no, this is a battle royale. Anyone's welcome. Come and join in. I think that's, again, like the idea that NFTs are just JPEGs is so antiquated and stupid that anyone who says it doesn't really deserve to come and play in this space until they've done a lot more homework. So, you know, hopefully we can shine a bit more of a light on how these multi-resources can actually work by just going and doing one and building it and making it awesome. But listen, do you have anything else to add before we wrap this up? Because this was dope. I'm so happy I got you on board to talk this through. I learned a lot.
Yeah, thank you for accepting my ass diving proposal.
Stop it! We're trying to get away from the plugs. Wait.
Yeah, no, nothing else to add. Just to check out skybreach.app for all of these concepts that I mentioned. Happy to talk to anybody about it. Happy to collaborate with any other project, metaverse or not. Yeah, let's make NFTs better for everybody, everywhere at once.
Yeah, I definitely echo those thoughts. I think what you're building, and especially your enthusiasm for what we've seen, just shows me like, yeah, this is something to pay attention to, and I'm glad you see it the same way. So my thanks to Bruno from Remark for joining me. I won't even try and pronounce your last name because I'll get it wrong.
It's fine. Don't bother.
But yeah, thanks for joining us, and do go and read the Futureverse white paper. It's definitely worth taking a look. And thanks to Philip Huang for your help kind of deciphering plug and what might be going on there as well. This is time to leave it. We've been the Defiant, and I'll see you next week.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Earn up to $2,500 in NFT rewards from top collections like Mutant Ape Yacht Club, Azuki, Doodles, and more when you sign up for Slingshot's mobile waitlist. Slingshot is a Web3 trading platform where you can discover and trade over 7,500 crypto tokens at the best prices at lightning fast speed. With a super sleek, intuitive UI, you feel like you're trading on a centralized exchange when you're actually trading DeFi. Trade now on desktop and make sure to grab your slot on the mobile waitlist. Sign up at slingshot.finance/The Defiant. Decentralization of Ethereum gives us security. Layer 2 protocol Arbitrum gives us low-cost transactions. TracerDAO's perpetual pools gives us liquidation-free, long-term leveraged tokens. The combination of all three of these unlocks the full potential of DeFi. Using Tracer, you can take long or short positions with leverage to trade anything: commodities, cryptocurrencies, equities, even NFTs. Dive into perpetual pools at tracer.finance and learn more about this exciting release with The Voyage, a 6-week journey in Tracer's perpetual pools to earn TCR rewards and explore the potential. Zeta Chain is the first public Layer 1 blockchain that natively connects with any chain and layer without wrapping or bridging assets. This unlocks a new class of omni-chain dApps, such as smart contract managed external assets, even on Bitcoin and Dogecoin, multi-chain NFT ownership, cross-chain DeFi apps, and much more. Check out their developer docs at zetachain.com and start building the future of multi-chain.